is the executive director and the founder of Out on a Limb Foundation. This is a nonprofit charity that provides financial and emotional support for families dealing with limb loss. Last month, Robert and his team held a fundraiser in Lido Beach to raise money to build a facility in Western Nassau that can potentially help around 300 children with prosthetic limbs each year. The facility will be an open space gym where kids can learn to walk, run, and ride a bike. In total, Out on a Limb is hoping to raise $1.5 to $2 million to make this dream become a reality. The work being done by this organization is truly inspiring, and it is my honor to present Robert Schulman with a citation in recognition of his tireless work in helping children adapt to life with prosthetics. Thank you, Robert, for all that you do for our town.
Supervisor, if I may, real quick, Robert, I know he's a resident of my councilmatic district. He's been doing a great job with the Out on a Limb Foundation, and I'm proud to sit on your board. I know great things are ahead, so God bless.
You need the senior council. You should be standing next to the supervisor. You sit next to you. Watch your back.
It looks great. We'll do one more time. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, good morning again. I'd like to welcome everybody to this regularly scheduled town board meeting. For those of you who have never attended a meeting before, we will first have public hearings followed by an administrative calendar. There are meetings available in the rear of the pavilion, so if you'd like to get one, you can step to the back. If you wish to be heard on any matters, you can fill out a slip and give it to one of our public safety officers. After the meeting is adjourned, the board will remain in session to hear public comment. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Here.
Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Diaz-Casino.
I'm here.
Councilman Dunn.
Here.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Here.
Supervisor Gilman.
Here. I'd now like to ask Councilman Bruce Blakeman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise if you're able and join with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And in honor of Veterans Day, our office sent out a town-wide email to our employees asking those who have served our nation in uniform to be recognized if they so wished. Our town has a long and proud history of serving this country when called upon, and we are so proud of the veterans who continue to serve here in Town Hall. And to that end, outside of the pavilion, we are proudly displaying honor boards, which include information and pictures about those who have served our country and are now serving our town. If there is any veteran who's working in town hall who did not get an opportunity to submit their photos and their information, we welcome you to do so. Please reach out and we will prepare an honor board for you as well. So thank those people who have served us here, who served us, our nation, and serving us here in town hall. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please call the first public hearing?
Petition of Commissioner of Buildings to demolish and remove the in-ground swimming pool and remove all litter and debris from the property in Belmont.
I do not have any slips on this matter. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, sir, I move the hearing because the item is absent.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Petitioner of Commissioner of Buildings to demolish and remove the 1.5-story wood frame, one-family dwelling and remove all litter and debris from the property in Oceanside.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the petition granted.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Petition of Commissioner of Buildings to demolish and remove the 1.5-story wood frame, one-family dwelling and remove all litter and debris from property in Roosevelt.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in Baldwin, Belmore, and Levittown.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the hearing be closed and the item is absent.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in Baldwin, Levittown, and Woodmere.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the hearing be closed and the item is adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding arterial stops in Levittown and Wantagh.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Make a motion that we close the hearing and the item be adopted.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding taxi cab stands in Belmore.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the hearing be closed and the item is adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call our next public hearing.
Proposed public parking field maps in Franklin Square.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Boothby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposal of a law regarding the Department of Purchasing in order to provide additional guidance relative to local contracting preference for eligible service-disabled veteran-owned businesses.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard?
Good morning, Edith and Meredith, welcome resident. I'd like to know what are the particulars with regard to this and what would be the next steps.
Mr. Fox is here. Mr. Fox? And Mr. Pitney, to the extent you need to be involved in just explaining what this is.
Supervisor, members of the town board, the existing law that was passed in Chapter 62 provides for we had an existing 5% preference to the local businesses within Nassau County, and we added a 7.5% preference to local veteran-owned businesses. This additional addendum provides guidance on how we can attach the 2.5% to a local veteran-owned business when a local business also competes with the same contract. So it just gives clarity, and we're going to hold a forum this evening for all veteran-owned businesses to go through each step of this so that it is explained.
It helps a little bit, but again, how is that going to be implemented down the road as far as training and awareness and outreach? Since I don't believe that the town has an actual listing of veteran-owned businesses, is that correct?
We don't. That's the reason that we have the forum this evening, to start that. So members of our Department of Veterans Affairs, we reached out to a number of VFWs and veterans organizations, invited them this evening, and we will keep that up.
And as far as the overall department to do the actual purchasing and procurement, how will they be advised of this new law and what is the accountability to track?
It's my accountability. I am the Director of Purchasing. It's my responsibility to train them. I oversee every bid and every opening within the town of Hempstead, so that I apply it to it. So I am the one that's buck stops here.
Okay. And is this forum going to be the only one, or is this kind of the one shot as far as this type of thing requires ongoing training and development and outreach? So are there going to be additional resources? I would gather you would need additional resources to make sure that this becomes something that's consistent as opposed to a one shot. So
We need to establish a database.
okay.
We don't have them in our existing system.
Okay.
And definitely, this is a first shot at this.
Okay.
I am a veteran. I'm a Marine. Mr. Dunn, I'm a Marine forever. That was just my birthday, so I'm very concerned about the veterans.
Okay. Well, as I said, I'm hopeful, and I do appreciate the Commissioner's actions with regard to this. Now I leave it to the elected officials because I don't recall seeing anything in the budget that speaks to providing the necessary resources. And we need to have this not just as a first step, but as an overall platform that has some multiple facets to it. So rest assured that I will be following up with this because, again, we don't need to be going into the courts of law. Too many attorneys are making enough money in this township, in this county. We need to provide those resources to build our veteran businesses so that we can provide credible jobs so our veterans can be hired and afford to live here. So I am hopeful, I have to remain hopeful that this is not just one step for a photo opportunity. So I do thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any other slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Make a motion to close the hearing and the item be adopted.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gilman.
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the administrative calendar?
Okay. Supervisor, hold on one second. Supervisor, on the administrative calendar today, there are items 10 through 80. I also have 10 through
89.
Yeah, sorry, 10 through 89. I also have 3 resolutions that are an urgent or an emergency nature. The first is a resolution adopting a SEQR negative declaration and determination of non-significance in connection with an application for site plan approval for a parcel of land located in Inwood. This will be item number 81 on the calendar. I'm sorry. Sorry. This will be item number 91 on the calendar. The second resolution is a resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute an agreement with Beechwood Portofino LLC relative to maintaining property of the Roosevelt Field Water District. This will be item number 92 on the calendar. The third resolution is a resolution approving site plans submitted by Engel Berman of Uniondale LLC for construction of 192 2 and 3 story multifamily GA apartments and associated site improvements on a parcel of land in Uniondale. This will be item number 93 on the calendar.
92.
92.
That was 92. 93.
92.
Got it.
Which one's that?
93.
What was 92?
Beechwood.
Do any of the council members wish to sever any of the items on the administrative calendar?
Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion that we table item 42, 72, and 75. And I'd also like to postpone item number 76 to 11/27/2018.
Do we have a second? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Yes.
I also have one more motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to amend item 69, the town board's 2019 meeting dates insofar as to change February 19th at 10:30 a.m. to February 26th at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
Supervisor, can you just reiterate what we just did? I'm a little confused. We go over one more. Brilliant minds think alike.
So Councilman D'Esposito.
Yeah, I'll read, sorry, my items again. So I'd like to table item number 42, item number 72, item number 75, and I would like to postpone item number 76 to our next town board meeting, which is on November 27th, 2018. Can we just confirm that date? I got that right.
November 27th.
18. November 27th. Correct. November 27th, 2018.
Okay, and in addition, we have the councilwoman's.
Yes, what we then we did, it would be a motion to item number 69, the town board's 2018 meeting dates to change February 19th at 10:30 a.m. to February 26th at 10:30 a.m. to accommodate for winter break.
Second majority leader's motion.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Well, wait. Don't we have to first do, we have to do the Esposito's amendment first, then Aaron's, right? One is fine. One is fine.
On the motion, aye.
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakely.
On the combined motion, aye.
Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gilman.
Aye. May I have a motion on the administrative calendar?
Okay, move it as amended.
Second.
Madam, oh, no. I have have a couple of slips of those who want to be heard on the administrative calendar. Felix Procacci.
Excuse me.
Felix Procacci, 1165 Barnes Street, Franklin Square. Okay, on item number 27, the transfer from the appropriated fund balance to it's the Department of Occupants, occupational. On the occupational resources, on that transfer, we're going to transfer almost $760,000 over, and then on other items, we're going to borrow $2.5 million to settle a lawsuit, and then we're going to pay, a number of other things with the bond resolution for $80,000 for the Parks Department. All these, they're related in the sense because we're using money, we're bonding, we're going to pay interest on it, and we just had a budget where allegedly there would have been, it depends on who you want to believe, and we would have had a surplus. But there's always unexpected items in the budget. There's lawsuits, there's a lot of litigation going on in the town. We're going to be spending money, and had we not appropriated all the money and gave the tax cut, we could have saved the taxpayers money overall by being able to pay these items in cash, the $2.5 million settlement, the $80,000 settlement, and the appropriated fund balance that we have to use, we would be able to pay off in cash. We wouldn't have to use fund balance. If we don't have the cash now, the surplus was going to materialize by next year, according to the projections made by the experts. So we could have saved the taxpayer money by not giving them the tax cut, and because now we have to borrow money to pay our bills. Because if we realize whatever number you want to believe, 8 million, 11 million, whatever it is, we wouldn't have to borrow that money. We could just take that money next year, maybe just get a note for 1 year if we don't have the cash now, and just spend the money. So I think it's, we have to look at all these expenditures that we're borrowing money for, and when we do our budgeting, because there's always unexpected things, and to have a cash surplus a little bit, we still don't meet our reserve levels, and had we done that, I think we could save the taxpayer money by not giving a tax cut. On the meeting dates, I'm concerned that what has happened in the past, there's still on the October meeting where the tentative budget is going to come up in 2019, there's still going to only be one business day to review the tentative budget. And nobody ever mentioned, I got all the meeting dates going back to 2014, and it's always been that way. The state law always required that the tentative budget be due on September 30th. Sometimes that falls on a weekend, and there's never been any time to review the budget. So I'm asking that we do what we did this year and move those dates for the tentative budget hearing and the budget hearing up several weeks, so it gives time to review. Otherwise, we're going to have the same argument we had this year. Oh, we only had one business day. It never been a problem since the beginning of time. All of a sudden, this year, we had that problem.
I believe we raised that point. Did we not raise that point? So that if we know that that's what's going to happen next year, we should just calendar it accordingly? Mr. Pitnick, did you raise that with Mr. Regina? I thought Mr. Pitnick talked to you about the new calendar, because if what happened this year, you can expect that it's going to happen next year. I have to hand in a budget on September 30th. I think the meeting in the calendar is scheduled for October 1st. I don't have the calendar in front of me. So this year what happened was everybody said there wasn't enough time to review it, and so we had to call a special meeting. So maybe we should look at those dates and just anticipate that that's going to happen again. So this way we can actually just plan that that's going to happen again. No, I put in a different schedule for the calendar for next year, but that was changed by, I don't know, someone on the majority changed the calendar. So they're the ones who did this calendar that's before the town board today. So For the budget hearings, we know that I had to hand in the tentative budget on September 30th. So right now, I believe that there's a meeting scheduled where the tentative budget would be ripened into the preliminary budget. We know that this year there was an issue raised for the first time that there wasn't enough time to review it, and so we had to call a special meeting and we had to adjourn the budget hearing twice. So why don't we just anticipate that that's probably going to happen again next year and plan accordingly? So maybe we should revisit that.
But what would be the plan? To not, instead of following what we have?
So if you know that I'm going to give you a budget on September 30th, that you're not going to be prepared to vote on whether or not that should become the preliminary budget on October 1st, because we only have a matter of days. I mean, I'm happy to share the budget as we go along in the process, so we don't have to do this, but since it happened this year, I was open this year, and it happened this year, maybe we should just plan an extra hearing or adjourn October 1st, so that we'll at least have a week to review the official filed budget before we take a vote on whether or not it's a preliminary budget. I mean, I'm talking really to all of you to see if you think that that's a prudent idea. If it happened this year, it's probably going to happen again next year. I'm just guessing, so it might make sense to just plan it this way so we don't have to call special meetings and have a whole lot of drama. We can just say this is the way we're going.
Would be October.
The budget as required by law is given by September. That's October 2nd.
My advice to the council would be to keep this format based on how it has worked in years past. It actually builds in enough time in case any council members want to propose amendments to the tentative budget. If we change it, I don't know that we give ourselves enough time cushion in October.
I'm just worried that October 2nd is not enough time for us to have any kind of meaningful discussion about proposed amendments to the
Because
budget.
of state law, the tentative budget has to be presented to the town board on October 5th. And there's also, I believe, Jewish religious holidays, you went to the Wednesday of October 2.
Why don't we just keep it as is and we can make the amendments on an as-needed basis?
That would be my recommendation.
So there you are, Mr. Kakashi.
On item number 78, extending the moratorium. Statutory construction is defined as the process of determining what a particular statute means so a court may apply it accurately. If this process is applied to this resolution, it would be found to be invalid. To change a law, a hearing must be called and properly noticed. This moratorium came about due to public outcry, not from any land study. The study that was performed was inconclusive, as should have been expected since the engineers were never given any plan to study. Case law shows that zoning power, as limited by a statutory grant, must operate in relation to land used, and the threat of picketing and demonstration are alien to legitimate objects of zoning. This is paraphrased from an actual case in the village of Hempstead, Descendant versus Gold, in the village of Hempstead, where there was opposition, and it was overturned by the appellate division.
The village of Hempstead here?
Anyway, it had to do with the court in the second division, and they ruled that you can't use the opposition as a reason for zoning. It has to be of land use, and since no study was done to justify this moratorium from the beginning, we've been 2 years now into this moratorium going on. This is, I think, the 6th extension, so it's patently illegal. And one more thing, I would like to have a running foil now, because apparently this board doesn't want to abide by state law and give the details of resolutions. All the retirements, all the leaves of absence, all the details of the resolutions should be provided. And I've asked for this for 6 months, and I'm going to now foil, and I'd like my foil to be filled prior to the meeting so I could discuss anything that's on the resolution, because they've been incomplete. My only alternative is to do litigation, which I don't want to do. Thank you.
Mr. Ra, are we not permitted to post information about leaves of absences and family medical leave and things like that?
There are always problems when we start talking about medical and leaves of absences for various reasons. There are HIPAA laws. We have to be very careful on what we post, and we comply with state law in each instance.
My school district posts it all the time. Thank you.
Pearl Jacobs.
Good morning, Pearl Jacobs, Uniondale, Milton Garden Civic Association. Question, Resolution 43, regarding the secret negative declaration. Can I have some clarification on that, please?
Mr. Long? Mr. Long?
Yes.
Number 43, the neg deck for SECRA.
That's very good.
Councilman Amos, is this the one you tabled? No.
No, it's a
The applicant is St. Michael's Home, and it's an 11.10 parcel of land located on the south side of Front Street, east of Maple Grove Avenue in Uniondale, and it's to approve the development of an existing building into a nursing home, senior residence, and assisted living facility.
I read that. I asked about the secret. The status of the secret.
There's a secret neg deck, oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. That says there is no, the granting of the application will have no negative impact on the environment.
Did they do a secret on the water quality there at that site? It was a former nursing home.
This was considered an action that didn't need an air quality study. Under the laws of secret. That doesn't mean when the application comes before the town board that there might not be questions about that. This is just the environmental law portion.
Thank you. Would you be able to tell me the scope of this proposed project? What will be the scope of this project? For example, will the existing building be partially demolished, or would it be?
Well, the existing building will be renovated to make it accessible and make it more proper for it to be an assisted living facility. So there will be, yes, there will be renovations.
Okay, would there be any sort of demolition at that site?
Well, we prefer to use renovation because we talk about demolition, that means knocking things down. They're not going to knock down the entire structure.
That's why I asked whether it be partial or any demolition at all, or you cannot answer at this time?
There will be substantial renovations to the building.
So we might say that there might be some sort of partial demolition at that site?
Could be, I don't have those plans not yet.
Okay, would you be able to provide me with that?
Yes.
Okay, and also I would like to know, will there be additional sewage connections required at that site?
That has to do with when we see the application and when it goes through engineering, if it's necessary, we will require it.
So you will provide me with that information at all?
As time, it will be on the calendar, so you'll see it, yes.
Okay, because the sewage issue is very, very concerning. We're going through a lot of issues with the sewage project there now. I had a meeting with my legislator last week, and it's a total, I'm just going to say it's not a pleasant situation that's going on there, but we're on top of that in Ocean Garden Civic. Thank you. And I would like that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mary Ellen Craig?
Have you signed up for this? At the end of September.
Mary Ellen Craig, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. There, relating to the St. Michael's, will there be a hearing set?
There, it will be back before, this is just the initial phase so that they can now proceed with their application, yes.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to verify. On item number 80, the public hearing for Uniondale, what location is that?
We're just calling for a public hearing. So we're just calling for a public hearing to be held on these regulations at the next board meeting.
Right, I understand that. I'm just asking for the location of the Uniondale restriction to limit parking.
Mr. Reed?
Morning Supervisor, Town Board members. These are issues that are coming up in the next town board meeting. I have your number, I'll give you a call, but I don't have any information with me.
So I'd like it on 81 also, please?
Yes.
Piece of paper.
All right.
Here,
You're welcome.
I can tell you where the road's going to be, see what's going to be, find out.
Thank you.
What's the number?
Rory Gordon?
Excuse me, can you just take a step
I'm
forward?
Rory Gordon, Hop New York, Connection. I'd like to start with the meeting dates, item number 69.
Motion.
Last year when I spoke about this, Ms. Sweeney, you said, I definitely think it's a good idea that we have more evening dates. You have the same amount of evening dates as, can you stop the clock, please? Last year when we discussed this, you said you thought it was a good idea that we had more meeting dates. It's the same amount of meeting dates, and now the time has come to add more evening dates. What happened here? You weren't the only one. There were several people when it was Santino's commission. There's so many people that write online, and I see it on your page, where people are asking for more evening dates. It's just inconvenient for the general public to be here during the day. So is there any particular reason why you guys did not add more evening dates, other than the fact that maybe you guys don't want to give up your evenings? I'm not talking about you, because you were for it.
We rolled out more this year, this current year, and we thought we'd give it a try, and we frankly haven't seen a huge increase in participation for evening meetings. I don't really care either way, and it was just the consensus of the board that we would go forward with as planned.
Well, it seems like it runs simultaneously with the issues. When there's a big issue that a lot of people are not in agreement with, then the evening meeting doesn't cover it.
I just wanted to clarify, Ms. William, that I proposed 14 evening meetings.
Thank you. It's good to know, and no one else agreed with
Or
that.
if I can be heard, I'm like Councilwoman Sweeney. I don't care either way, whether it's day or night. But we haven't found that there's been materially more people at night. Even on contentious issues, we haven't found that. And what we have found is that we have more staff available on meeting day for various things that we have to do. So it's better to have more staff here for things that need to get done on a day meeting than a night meeting. And if it was materially different, I'd agree with it, but it's not.
When you say that on contentious issues that they're not running coincide, that's not true. I mean, I went over the plan of last year, and then, I mean, I can't see what's going to happen in the future here, but last year there were a lot of contentious issues where people wanted to come, and it was during the day. And it just seems unfair to the public that really wants to speak on something that's an important issue. You may not think it's contentious, but then they all show up here Just to give you an example, that situation with the people from the boating, you would probably have 3 times as many people if people didn't have to work.
You know what? Typically, when there is a contentious issue, we would know about it, and people contact us. And I've had meetings in my district. I know Councilman D'Esposito has had it because we've had joint meetings over major issues that have come up. We've actually brought town hall to them. So, and Supervisor Gillen was at a meeting that had a lot of interest in both my district and Councilman D'Esposito's district. So when it's appropriate, we actually go to the people.
Are you the only person that was interested in having 14 evening meetings?
I can't really speak for anybody else, but the dates that I put forward had 14 evening meetings.
Okay, thank you. Why is it that there's just a slip of paper here that just says, in addition, there are 15 resolutions for various types of leaves of absences. There's no number on it. It was the last piece of paper stuck on the agenda for today. For the resolutions, it says on the top 11/13/2018 when I printed it out. I mean, why aren't we entitled to know who is taking a leave of absence? I don't care if it's for medical reasons. Why aren't we entitled to know? We're paying their salary while they're gone.
I think it's privacy concerns. Is that correct, Mr. Ron?
Correct.
That's only if it's a medical issue, is that correct? It would be applicable?
Mr. Ron?
We try. It's a delicate balance, and if we have to make a mistake, we make a mistake on the side of the privacy because the town can be sued. There are HIPAA laws and there are privacy considerations, and that's the explanation.
You're asking, this I don't understand, you're asking for $2.5 million on the case that's, I think it's Gail Miller, is that correct?
What item are you looking at, Ms. Gordon?
Number 61.
The accidents, the negligence section. What's your question about that?
Maybe I'm not looking at the right case. I just want to make sure. Who is the plaintiff in this case?
Are you talking about the settlement of the lawsuit?
Without? You said we talking about settlement of the lawsuit?
Yeah.
Okay. The $2.5 million settlement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is the case completed?
Yes. That's a case that has to do with a horrific accident that occurred during the snow plow removal operations. And the gentleman in the car that was hit by the snowplow is reduced to a wheelchair and cannot speak. It was an absolutely horrific accident. And we tried the case on liability, and we lost 100% on liability. The thought was the town would have been subject to, on a jury verdict, the town would have been subject to much higher amounts. And that's why it was settled.
Did you understand that, Ms. Gordon? There was a verdict against us on liability, and we settled the damages portion. Is that accurate, Mr. Ron?
Correct. Once a jury finds you 100% liable, you're gonna get hit hard on money.
Okay, you guys don't carry insurance? You don't carry?
You're self-insured.
You're self-insured?
Correct.
Why is that? Did you
Because over the years we've saved millions and millions of dollars.
And the liability of people going out and driving, for example, is different than the liability of people walking around and slipping and falling in this building. There was no way that you could sever the two situations, that the liability for the truck drivers and anybody that's driving for the town of Hempstead, the building inspectors, there was no way to sever that insurance to save money? Because that seems to be where all the liabilities lie. It's a truck driver, a garbage man, somebody doing work for the town of Hempstead. Was that ever a thought that ever occurred?
The town has determined a very long time ago that paying the insurance premiums for liability on a municipality of this size is not financially feasible for us. We're much better off being self-insured.
But my question is you can't like insure certain departments as opposed to overall for the entire.
No, because insurance companies, I served on the board of an insurance company for, I guess, close to 20 years. Insurance companies would see right through that. They'd see that you're putting the greater risk on those policies, so they'd just build in the premium and bill a higher premium. You know, you just can't say this is more dangerous, so we'll self-insure everything else, but this, we're not. Well, the insurance company is going to say, hey, you give us all the risk, we'll spread it around, but if you're giving us the highest risk, you're going to pay a higher premium. So basically, you make determinations on self-insurance based on claims history. And is someone from the controller's office here?
I don't need a dissertation. I'd
like to know now, what's our claims history on liability? Do we have a figure on that?
I don't have it readily available.
You don't have it available?
No, I can't get it, but I don't have it available.
But is it a number that would warrant us to take a look at it, not being self-insured and looking at whether or not a traditional policy or a self-insured retention policy would make sense?
I believe what the town attorney has said, it's in the town's best interest to go self-insured. There was a study done a number of years ago, and I don't think anything has changed since.
I think you should give us an update just so we can see what the claims experience has been over a few years. It's a good question.
We are doing an analysis of all our insurance coverage right now. We're doing a comprehensive look at all of our insurance coverage.
I think that's a really good thought. You know, you never know, because I price my insurance for my business, my home, my car, everything. I price it at least every 2 years, and I always do better. And I really think it might be something worth looking into. And Leslie, yeah, no problem. Leslie, how many printings did we do this year? You know, the mailer things.
I don't have that number offhand, but I'd be happy to give it to you. I don't know what it is right now.
Is there a sizable difference from?
It's significantly less.
Significantly less?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know how many people work in the printing department?
I would have to, I don't know offhand.
Okay. We'd be curious.
Commissioner, do you know? Commissioner Marino?
We're talking 10 people, and that's also including not just printing, but putting it in advance and so forth.
I didn't hear what he said.
He said it's about 10 people.
And does that include like the pressmen and all of that? Who does that include, those 10 people?
The commissioner is going to join us to answer the question.
Morning Supervisor, board members, senior councilwoman. When I say 10, that includes the people that not only print, but also set up the paper and put them into the bags that go to different locations and drive them to different post offices so we can save rate. If you bring it to a certain location, you pay less than the full amount.
10 people. So if it's significantly less, would you say it was 75% less? Because I've seen it too many. I think it's great.
I don't have that figure for you. I'd be happy to figure it out and give it to you.
I would really like that. Thank you, Supervisor.
Valerie Lamb?
Yeah, this is it. I'll tell you how many. No, I know, they didn't cut the people here. Here it is. Here's her mailings. Here's the latest. Okay. That's what I say. That's what I tell you. Yes.
Are we on public comment?
No, we're on the administrative calendar. I had a slip for you for the administrative calendar.
Okay, so that was regarding the town of Hempstead, Shelter Dogs Playing for Life, etc. resolution.
That's been tabled.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Whoever tabled it, I got here late. I appreciate it very much, and I'll keep my comments short. What I would really like to do is encourage the board to please, bounce these ideas and proposals off of the experts and the animal advocates before even getting to this point, because these are important conversations. And Supervisor Gillen, I recall on your campaign, you did promise We have it on video that you were going, one of the first things that you were going to do was meet with the animal advocates, such as Diane Madden, to go over policies, procedures, programs, etc., that could be brought back to the shelter. And as we all know, not only has that not happened, but the place is just in a downward spiral. It's deteriorating by the week. We've recently lost more rescue relationships. We're losing volunteers. They're dropping like flies. They're fleeing to other shelters because it's such a toxic environment. And so I'm here to just appeal to the board before you, even get this far. I understand that anyone can put a resolution up, but we're here for the best interest of the animals. We spend money. This is a bag full of foils that I had to pay for $64 for one round of foils. And I gladly do it because we're here to help make positive changes for the animals. We spend a lot of time on this. We email, we go and visit the shelter. We're fighting for the improvement of these languishing animals. And that includes also the overall culture of the place, which is horrible right now. It's horrible. You're losing good people after good people. There's cyberbullying going on the internet amongst not only other volunteers and staff members, but people are just being incredibly mistreated. And the reason why this is relevant is because you have people chomping at the bit, working for free, that want to help, and having a conversation with us and saying, do you think, guys, this is a good idea? Maybe this is working at that shelter over there. Or do you think it would work for our shelter? We're here to help and tap into these brains. I do it all the time. I learn every single day from the people behind me. And, instead of wasting at a future date, this resolution comes back on another $9,200, I vote for using the $5 million already allocated to the shelter and fixing it. We can fix this with $5 million a year. I promise you. We can make it a country club for the animals. Starts with the people, though. You gotta incorporate the right people. I'll see your public comments.
I do not have any other slips on the administrative calendar. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard?
I have a few questions. First, if I can just get someone to explain item number 28 for me, I guess someone from communications or public affairs, what the vote is for and what we did with it.
So the flat.
You have to give your name and address so she has your name.
This is Mr. Percone.
We need to give it so she has it.
Mike Percone, Press Secretary, County of Hempstead, New York. The flat bottom boat was required to navigate the channel near West Marina. Since it was low tide, we required a boat that would be able to navigate really low water, about 1 or 2 feet.
None of our Bay Constable or Conservation Waterways vessels could do it?
Correct. After consulting with our Department of Conservation Waterways, the amount of people that we were required to bring on the trip in order to show the work being done, which was a living barrier reef, which was composed of discarded oyster and clam shells that were being built up around some surrounding islands. We didn't have the equipment in-house to do that, so we rented a boat, which came out to a few $100.
How many people were on the boat?
I don't have an exact figure, but it was,
anybody from the town board on the boat?
Yes. People from the town board run the boat, media run the boat, employees from Conservation Waterways run the boat.
And everybody on the town board was invited to participate, is that correct?
Everyone from the town board was invited. It was a press conference. I forget the date exactly. I believe Councilwoman King Sweeney was present during the press conference, and immediately following the press conference, we went on the vote.
Okay.
Thanks, and obviously it needed to be done during low tide, right?
Correct, because that's when the bags of shells would normally be able to be deposited during high tide and wouldn't work properly.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question. Commissioner Lino, would you please come up? Good morning. I just have a quick question. I noticed that in items 64 through 68, we are increasing the non-resident fees at the various town beach properties, mostly those along Lido Beach and one in Hewlett Point Park. And I noticed that one Lido Beach, particularly Malibu, is not included here. I was wondering if there's a reason why Malibu is not included.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Because I think that we could have a real issue if we don't include the Malibu property, because we'll drive non-residents to overcrowd that beach. So maybe that's something we can look at. Mr. Ross, is there any reason why we didn't include the Malibu property on there?
I did not.
Was that just an omission? Was that an omission of some kind?
Yeah, it has.
Should be included.
It's probably overlooked. What I believe is, and I will look into it, it should go up is the same amount as town park went up, because it's the same register.
Okay.
It's probably, that's why we didn't list it, because it goes into the funding for town park.
But will that mean that the non-resident fees will be raised at that location as well?
To the dailies, yes. Yes, at that location.
So just, Commissioner, just to confirm, in the resolutions, what you're saying is in the resolutions that are presently on the calendar, the non-resident fee at Malibu will increase.
Yes. For the daily resident, yes, because we closed
The
out.
daily non-resident.
The daily non-resident will definitely go up because we closed out at town park. We don't close out at Malibu, so that funding will go to town park.
Okay, so Malibu is embraced by town park?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I have a question on item number 24, conservation of waterways. There might be a question for the town attorney. Anybody? Hey, hi Tom, how are you? Mr. Town Attorney, on item number 24, two questions. Why did we go to an out-of-state university for this grant? Is New York State grant funding?
I believe, I'm told by Conservation and Waterways that the person who is, I believe it's University of Texas, is the expert on this, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but on this food web issue, and it's a state grant, and that's why the Texas State University is the leader in the field, and that's why we're going to them.
That's what I got today, was that she's an expert in mercury, and that's what this is all about, is mercury. She used to work at a
Sir, could you just step up and just identify yourself and speak into the mic? Thank you.
Supervisor, members of the town board, Tom Dosher, Deputy Commissioner of Conservation Waterways. So I was just told by Dr. Brown, who works for us as a conservation biologist, that she's a specialist. She worked at Delphi and Stony Brook, and we worked with her in the past. She moved to Texas, and she helped write the grant for New York State, and that's how this all came about.
I'm not questioning her expertise, but in the future, perhaps we can also do a diligent local search. We've got the Delphi, Hofstra, Nassau Community College, Stony Brook, the Webb Institute. There's a ton of universities here. If they don't have expertise, that's fine. I just think we should do a diligent search to go, especially with New York State funding. It's our taxpayers. And Mr. Rob, the second question. Thanks, Tom. That's all I had.
Yeah, Mr. Emerson, I just want to supplement what you said. I agree with you 1,000%. But if what I understand is this started out as a Stony Brook grant, but she moved and she was the grant application, so it moved with her.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
So that's what happened. Because I agree with Mr. Ambrosino that we got so many universities, especially here. We got Hofstra here. Adelphi, we got our community college. You know, we should always start there and then move the circle out, Long Island, the region, and the state, rather than go someplace else.
You said she got her expertise at Delphi, is that what she got her expertise?
She was working.
She worked there. So when she left, the whole thing just fell apart? There's nothing, no expertise in Delphi anymore?
Probably what the program probably was.
We all concur it should be Long Island if we're dealing with grants.
Just my follow-up question, this is to the town attorney. Not to get into the weeds and over-lawyer it, but I noticed the choice of law provision on this contract is Texas law. Was that non-negotiable, I presume, that Texas?
Yes, because it's Texas State University, and they will not undertake to do the program unless Texas law applies.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? Please.
In all things, I try to be respectful. Me, the J. Mary Baldwin resident, I'm so glad someone asked that question with regard to the grant, because I did ask that one as well. Just concerns about, maybe someone can clarify with regard to item 30, 32, 34. And some of they listed 71. I keep seeing the name Lero, and I'm just trying to understand, are there different components of Lero, or are they just the only company that seems to be able to do surveys and overviews and research, and no one else in Town of Hempstead can do that work?
So, with respect, Mr. Rock, can you speak with respect to items 30, 31, and 32?
34.
34, the library funding district questions.
So there are special portions of the town of Hempstead that are not served by a library. Those portions of the town of Hempstead might be served by a library. So there is an election every couple of years where those areas who are not served by a library choose a library to service their area. For example, in Franklin Square, I live in the Franklin Square Library District. But there are other areas that are not served by, that are not within the geographical confines of a library district. Those areas want to be able to use a library. So the various surrounding libraries then put out proposals, and there's an election, there's a vote every year, or every couple of years, depending on how long the contract is for, as to what library district will serve those areas. The people in those areas pay all the costs and expenses associated with the election and associated with the use of the library. Lero is able to get a list of the registered voters in the area, so those are the people who are eligible to vote in that library district election.
So Lero has access to residents, their information, and they are selected by the library, but they're paid for by the town?
They are paid for ultimately by the residents of the district who are not serviced by a library. It goes in their it comes up on their tax bill as a library district expense. It's part of the tax bill.
So is Lero GIS and survey the same group as Lero Program Construction Management on 71? Is it the same company? Yes or no?
Let me just look at 71. Yeah, I think it's part of it. There's the Lero group, but the Lero that you see in the library district resolutions are affiliated with it.
So no one sees that as a potential conflict or a problem that this company seems to pop up a lot?
Mr. Chairman, Are you ready, Mr. Chairman? So I believe that the item 71, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that there's a new system that we have to put in place. It's been put in place by the state that will help us prioritize what roads need to be repaired. This Lero Construction Management is someone that's on contract, and there is a timeliness issue. Perhaps I actually think that this should have gone out, but we don't have the time to put it out for a bid, but they are on-call contract, and that's why they have been selected. And Mr. Chairman, you can elaborate further since you were the person who's in charge of this.
So I think you described it very well. They're on one of our on-call contracts, but we use a lot of different consultants, upwards of 20 different consultants. Lero was selected for this particular project due to their expertise in roadway assessment. So it makes sense as to why they were chosen.
Well, I guess so, since they do have access to information and voters and things of that nature. It seems very interesting.
That has nothing to do with it. This is a roadway assessment project. So they go out, they're actually using state-of-the-art technology to scan the roads, and then they're creating a directory of all the roads and rating them in accordance of their condition. And they're experts in this field.
And what types of, let's say, utilization plans are they incorporating so that other people can become experts and connected as well? For example, do they have a utilization plan that incorporates service-disabled businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses? We seem to have this select group that always becomes afforded the opportunities because they are labeled as experts, but they don't seem to share the resources, and they're the ones who seem to get the contracts over and over again. That just seems to be a pattern that I've observed.
I know the town is working on those initiatives. With our GOSA projects, as we've talked in the past, there are actual requirements that need to be met where 15% of all engineering work, and actually all work in general, the value 15%, needs to go to minority-owned businesses, and another 15% needs to go to women-owned businesses. So, I mean, those goals are always met with our GOSA-funded projects. With our in-house town-funded projects, I know we're working on initiatives, but there are no requirements that they actually have to follow. Our goal is to get the job done in the best manner possible, and Lero is certainly qualified for this.
And Ms. Merriday, one of the things that was just postponed to the next town board meeting is we're getting the specifications together, so we're going to actually be putting out RFQs now for our professional services providers going forward. So that's something you can look forward to at the next board meeting. We're just in the process of working out those specifications.
Yeah, I would say, well, this was RFQ'd. I mean, the on-calls themselves were all RFQ'd. So this is over a year ago. They're active contracts, but all of them were put out as RFQs, and the most qualified firms were selected. So there was an RFQ process that did happen to select these firms.
Yeah, and I appreciate your efforts. It's just saddens me that this particular initiative, again, seems to be part of the pattern as far as postponing the aspects that speak to workforce and supplier diversity, and that lack of inclusion seems to be a problem. Not from your end, I mean, you're doing the best you can, but if it's not coming from the leadership, you getting the resources as well as the legislation to implement it, it still makes it very problematic for diverse businesses to receive any opportunities for the tax dollars that diverse communities are paying into this fund. I thank you for that. I'm not sure why that particular issue, number 76, was tabled. It would be nice if all of that clarification and communication was taken care of.
I think 76 was postponed.
That's the item I was just talking about. We're still working out the specifications for the RFQ.
It wasn't tabled, it was just postponed to the next meeting. I think the council to the town board and the council to the supervisor have been working together. They just needed a little bit more time to have it ironed out to the best that they could.
Okay. And as someone mentioned earlier, it would be nice if all of you considered those of us who do have an expertise in this arena. I mean, there are a number of people who speak to the issue as it pertains to the animal shelter, but there are some of us, who do have the expertise that pertains to procurement and outreach, but you continue to utilize your own resources, and sometimes it works out, and once again, these bonded out litigations seem to speak otherwise. My other question had to do with, I guess, looking at this mobile veterinary clinic. I just find it interesting that Newsday will report on a mobile clinic that speaks to going out to take care of the pets for our veterans, but we can't seem to fund a mobile resource that goes out to take care of the veterans themselves. Just wanted to make that as a point of interest. I just thought that was very interesting to note that we spend so much time, money, and resources for the things that we do, understandably and importantly, to salute and support our veterans. Now that Veterans Day is over, what are we going to do now, moving forward, in providing new and improved resources for the day-to-day challenges that our veterans face? And lastly, I do want to speak to the issue about the meetings, and I appreciate the supervisor making the point that you're trying to put 14 evening meetings on the schedule. I was not very happy with the response that because of the number of meetings and the lack of participation, it was deemed, well, we'll just keep the number that we have. I think the town could do a much better job if we were not one, kind of fighting with each other and always in court with each other. If we did go out more so to the community to impress upon them the importance of coming to the meetings, one, two, and providing them the opportunities to come to evening meetings. Maybe if we provided some of that mobile support to get some of our veterans and seniors who are afraid to drive at night but are still civic-minded, that might be an opportunity to get them to come to participate at our meetings, our young people who may not have the facilities or capabilities to drive. So sometimes it's not always about the numbers that you see in the room, but just making a better effort to get them there. Thank you.
Mrs. Meredith, I just had a meeting with my community. I have meetings with them each year for each area that I have. Okay, I just had one Monday night. I was out on, was it Saturday, Sunday, with the veterans. I had a meeting with them. And that's what I like to do in the evenings. When I have the time, I like to use my time outside because I have them directly there with me. I can hear exactly what they want to say and they listen to me. So I enjoy that. And it's very good because it's a closeness that you get with them. I'm not saying anything about it, but there's a closeness that you can get with them when you're direct with them, and they can see you, and they don't have to listen to other people other than when they're talking about their problems in that particular area. I do that. I've been doing that since I've been on this board. And I think some other members are doing that as well.
With all due respect, we pay town taxes, and I think the voices from the communities that you reach out to, and as Councilman Blakeman said that he reaches out to, and as all of the council members say that they reach out to, this is our public forum for all of us to come together to share our experiences and our information and to find out from the public what needs to be done to best represent our taxes. Thank you very much. I'm done.
You don't think that they're public?
All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll for a vote on items, I believe, 10 through 19?
I actually just have one question on one more item, I'm sorry. Regards to 74, regarding to authorizing payment of legal fees for services rendered for the lawsuit that the supervisor has put forth against the town board, the town of Hempstead, the union. If I may, I'd like to ask our counsel, Mr. Rosenberg, to just opine on number 74.
Good afternoon, Honorable Council. Nope. My watch is just afternoon.
Clock's not running.
It's clear that under the law, it would be an inappropriate exercise for the board to pay for the council fees of the supervisor in brought a lawsuit against the town board in her own town. Inasmuch as the two challenge resolutions were validly enacted, did not violate any superior statute or the constitutions, did not infringe upon the supervisor's power or authority, nor her ability to properly function. We believe that the town should not and would be a clear abuse of discretion and probably subject to a taxpayer's lawsuit to pay for the legal fees of the supervisor to sue the town It's bad enough the town, well, bad enough for some people, it's not bad enough for me, but it's bad enough the town has to pay the legal fees to defend the lawsuit. Certainly, I don't think there's anyone on this planet that would voluntarily pay the attorney's fees of someone to sue them with. And that is the case here. There is no statute authorizing the board to pay the legal fees or mandating it. The statutes that do speak to fees, Public Office Law Section 18, for example, and the Town Law Section 65-1, all deal with defense of lawsuits brought against officials of the town, not for bringing in affirmative action against the town. If the supervisor is so inclined, she can try to get the court to award her legal fees, but I believe that she will be unsuccessful. But certainly there's no basis in the law to pay for the legal fees of the counsel who is hired without a resolution of the board authorizing his retention.
Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify that as reported in Newsday, there was a fee dispute arbitration between me and my prior counsel. I prevailed in my fee dispute resolution. His fees were reduced by almost 50%. And pursuant to the order of the arbitrator, I was supposed to put forward a resolution to have Mr. Williams' fees paid by the town. But that's pursuant to the arbitrator's order.
Well, I don't know if you want me to respond to that, but the arbitrator has no jurisdiction on
No need, Mr. Westbrook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk. Will you please call for a vote on items 10 through 92?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye on all items except item 74, on which I vote no, and I recuse myself on items 89 and 92.
Councilman Blakeman?
Yes, I recuse myself on items 89 and 93. With respect to item 74, I philosophically have no problem paying those fees. However, as council stated to the town board, it would be ultra-virus for me to vote for that. So I would parrot what our council said, that perhaps judicial intervention will resolve this, but for the present time, I vote no on 74.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Hold on one second.
Oh.
Okay, yes, for clarification, I am recusing myself from items 89 and 92, not 93.
What's 92?
92.
No, which one is 92? Which one is 91.
91.
I recuse myself on 89 and 91, not 92.
89.
I just found it. I thought it was 3 though.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
I vote aye on all, with the exception of 74, which I vote no.
Councilman Dunn?
I vote no on 74 and aye on all the rest.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Yes on all except item 74, I vote no.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
Yes, on all items except number 74, I vote no.
Supervisor Gillen?
I vote yes, except on item number 15, on which I recuse myself. Item number 89, on which I also recuse myself.
I make a motion that we end the meeting, close the meeting, please. Second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye. Mary Ann Callahan.
Good afternoon, Supervisor and Town Board. My name is Mary Callahan. I live in West Hempstead, New York, and I'm kind of here today to ask for your support for protecting our precious natural resources, specifically our trees. Yeah, I'm a tree hugger. As a lifelong resident of Long Island, born and raised in Elmont, I am fiercely protective of our environment and our natural resources. I grew up surrounded by farmland, yeah, a long time ago, and beautiful open spaces. As far as I know, there are still some places where people care. Sewanega High School, my alma mater, has protected its lovely campus and hasn't paid to developers, as of this moment. When my husband and I started looking for a home back in the 1970s, we knew we wanted to raise our family in this area. We found a small, neglected home on Maple Street in West Hempstead. The house was really nothing to look at, but oh, the yard was gorgeous. It was exactly as my husband and I grew up. We could have a forest of our own where our children could safely play and have wonderful imaginative experiences. As time went on, we saw how desirable this area became, as it was blessed with large pieces of land abundant with trees and natural plants. The problems for me started when people saw not the beauty of our trees and nature, but the possibility of building very large homes on the oversized pieces of property. I'm certainly not opposed to people having the right to do with what they want, to build whatever they want, but is it really necessary to decimate the natural park-like serenity? Cutting down all the trees is unnecessary and irresponsible. My fellow neighbors and our plight today is not about aesthetics or property values. It's about the future of our environment. I think it is time to rethink our actions. Progress is a good thing when harnessed and serving the right purposes. If we slow progress down now, progress in the future is possible. We must think about the future. Robert Moses did way back in the 1920s in an effort to move Long Island forward, planning for superior roadways to accommodate the growing use of autos. Toward this end, he developed our parkway system. Along with his progress, he managed to save and protect a vast expanse of our magnificent natural seashore, hence Jones Beach State Park. Those of us who own this most precious resource have a responsibility to preserve it. Yes, we enjoy it each and every day, but we should cultivate, protect, and preserve it. It's time to consider the long-range consequences of our actions in the name of progress. I, for one, see beauty in wind farms, how imagination and ingenuity leads us to the ability to harness our natural resources. So there are alternatives out there that we can support at the same time both progress and protection of our natural resources. I urge you to consider serious, restrictive zoning codes or laws to slow this destruction of our very precious environment. If we don't do this, who will? I have some pictures of what recently occurred on our block, just to illustrate. I don't know if anybody wants to take a look at them. It shows one of the arrows, the full picture and after. This was done on our block, and from what I gather from the pictures that we took, 30 to 40 trees were taken down. And we value our trees, our yards, and the natural resources of this town and Long Island. We all live here.
Is this a vacant lot?
It was after the trees were, we have a postboard here, there was a house there, it was demolished. Completely, you can see everything was taken down. They demolished the original house and now a new house is erected on the property. A house, a pool, a basketball court.
Thank you. I think you raised a very important point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roberta Post.
My name is Roberta Post. I'm a resident of Maple Street in West Hempstead. And what makes Garden City, Muttontown, Glen Cove, and many of our neighboring towns so appealing? Their tree-lined streets. The reason they maintain their appeal is due in part to the beautiful trees. In West Hempstead, on Maple and Elm Street, that appeal is in imminent danger. I'm here today to ask you to consider implementing serious zoning ordinances to save our trees. In doing my research, I was shocked to find out that in Nassau County, the restrictions on removal of trees on private land vary greatly from town to town. The town of Hempstead generally allows homeowners to remove trees without a permit. But in the adjacent town of Oyster Bay, homeowners must apply for a permit to remove trees of at least 8 inches in diameter. Oyster Bay often sends out an inspector, and violators can face fines of $350 to $1,000 per tree. In North Hempstead, homeowners must pay and apply for a permit to remove front yard trees larger than 10 inches in diameter. The application must include a drawing of the yard, trees, photos of the tree, an erosion control plan, and a signed statement from a certified arborist, including the health of the tree. The City of Glen Cove has strengthened its ordinances in recent years and now requires homeowners to pay a small fee and get approval before taking down a significant tree. In Muttontown, a resident faced fines of $23,000 for cutting down 7 trees on his property without a permit. The removal of trees across Nassau County provide a way for officials to defend the suburban and secluded feel of our neighborhoods. Officials said, citing the importance of preserving trees to provide summer shades for home and wildlife. Many Long Island tree laws include fines in the thousands of dollars to residents for illegally removing trees. The destruction and indiscriminate removal of trees, shrubs, related vegetation disrupts our ecological balance in nature and causes increased village costs for proper drainage control, impairs the benefits of occupancy of existing residential properties, and impairs the stability and the value of both improved and unimproved homes. I brought a poster board that I made, if you'd like to see it up close, showing you our beautiful neighborhood and now what is becoming of it. We just see these houses going up with completely barren, the trees in the back, the trees in the front, and all these beautiful big trees that are cut down. And whenever I see the tree removal people and I go, oh my gosh, what are you doing? They go, I know it's terrible, but there's no law, and so we have to, it's a job, we have to cut them down. I had a wildlife expert come to my home because here's a tree in my backyard and you see a raccoon out in the daytime. And I've been there for 47 years, and time to time I get raccoons during the day who are just hungry. I now have condominiums, because every time these trees are cut down, there's nowhere for them to go, and so they're all piling into my yard. I've had other animals. I've had squirrels in my house, mice in my house, which I've never had before, but every time this construction takes place, there's nowhere else to go. So I really urge you to look into this matter. The whole neighborhood is just changing. I know some of you have had friends on Maple Street and have been there before and have seen the beauty of why I live there. And it's starting to look like Brooklyn and Queens. People are just coming in, and the first thing they do is cut down every tree, then knock down the house, and put up a little mega mansion, which is their right to do. But I went to one of the neighbors and I said, would you please consider leaving just some of the trees in front for us? What you do in the back is your business. And he said, I don't give a damn about the trees. And that really hurt. So I'm going to leave this if you want to take a look at it.
Thank you. Again, thank you for raising this point. I think that's something that we as a town board can look at, maybe perhaps strengthening some of our tree ordinances and putting something in place more like Oyster Bay.
It's a win-win because we would keep our trees and we could collect revenue from town permits.
We've just become a tree city this year, so it's where we're going. So thank you so much. Felix Picacci.
Felix Picacci, 1165 Vaughn Street, Franklin Square, New York. First, I have 2 copies of some documents. I'd like one copy given to the supervisor and one to the town attorney. this is for later. We're not going to discuss this right now. On the fees that we raised, what we did in this budget, which was unusual because I've asked about this question in the past, we raised fees in the past, and I've asked back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, we raised fees, and I asked the question, how much revenue are we going to get? And in each case, the comptroller always said, we always need at least 1 year of data before we make any projections. And what happened this year is, based on these fee increases, we didn't wait for 1 year projection. Right away, we made the assumption, I think it was 600,000, whatever. It was a number. And I think that's, I'm not sure why we're changing the practice, because I've always asked that question. I said it going back to 2014. Also, when the attorney here was speaking, the clock wasn't running. The board didn't suspend the rules, so you violated the open meetings law. You violated your own rules. You had to you were going to let him talk without the clock running. You would have had to suspend the rules. He can't just talk like that. The meeting rules here are based on Robert Rules of Order, and the specific rules that the town board passed take precedence when there's a conflict. I just want to read a passage from Robert Rules of Order. Before a member in an assembly can make a motion or speak in a debate, the parliamentary name given from any form of discussion of the merits of a motion, he must obtain the floor, and he must be recognized by the chair. So I know there was a little debate over whether that's the case. That is the rule, unless we want to change the town rules that would override and let anyone speak anytime they want, then I'm sure that would work out well, right? On paragraph 6, motions, or section 6 motions, on section 6C, it says all motions are subject to debate except the motions listed in 6B. For example, and that's to adjourn, a previous question, conduct an executive session, lay on the table. And what was said at the August 7th meeting and the September 4th meetings on items that were postponed indefinitely, we were told by the parliamentarian that they were not debatable. But according to the town's own rules and to Robert Rules of Order, which I have copies here, they are debatable. But postponed indefinitely is debatable right now. I've read it, I have copies, I've went through it many times, I believe I'm correct on it, I triple checked myself on this. So we either going to allow postponing indefinitely to be debatable, or we're going to change the rules. On the issue of mailings, it is important to provide accurate information to residents, but it is also to provide information that the residents want to receive. On October 5th, 2010, 8 years ago, I provided a form to the town board, and it essentially, I can't find it, but here, just a sample, basically sending to residents with postage returned, so they have no reason for not putting this, they don't have to put a stamp on it. And this is the emphasis, we can make a nice mailing, and they ask them, what kind of mailing do you want to receive? Park, activities, and everything else. I've been consistent in all the 8 years I've been here in that I believe in choice. I believe that people, if they want to spend their money on mailings, and I've heard that from people, and some people say they don't want to, give them a choice. It would be a one-time, maybe you want to send a second mailing to reinforce it 3 or 4 weeks later in case they were away, they didn't get it, lost. So 2 times, give them an opportunity, plus make it available, this form, online, so they could opt out. Each resident will get an ID based on where they live, it'll be unique, for that address, so they could change it and they could add, they want to receive the mailings for certain things now. So I think that that's what we should do, because I think the people do the most important thing.
Well, that's a good idea, Mr. Pagacci.
On the issue of financial disclosures, the town is still in violation of its own ethics law, and the explanation given to the press never explains how it's a violation of privacy or anything else. I think if you're going to, you haven't done it yet, but if you're going to go down the road of rescinding it, that you're not going to require all town officials to give the disclosures that are required by law, I think the public deserves an explanation as to why exactly what it is. I've foiled a number of these financial disclosures, and they basically give very little information. I don't think I could steal anyone's identity based on what I've seen. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berkaji. Nita Meredith?
Ms. Meredith, do you mind if you just hold for 1 second? I just want to break something up. Being that we're on disclosures and discussing disclosures, I think that this should be brought up, probably should have been brought up before we voted. But on item 48 in today's administrative calendar, it's something that I brought up when we first voted on the contract probably months ago. Arthur J. Gallagher, Risk Management Services. This is a company who I believe one of the executives is the brother of your former boss supervisor and the chairman of your transition team. Now, this isn't somebody who just was a donor or a friend. This is someone who chaired your transition team to go from private life to public service and become the supervisor of the largest township in the nation. Now, his brother is the executive vice president of the company that we just granted this contract to. Now, if for someone who ran a campaign and continues to use transparency as their favorite word, I think that if there was ever a time that we should be transparent, it should be that you do have a relationship. And to say that you don't know who they are or what they're part of, to me, is ridiculous. So I think moving forward, at the very least, item number 48, you should have recused yourself from, especially someone who took joy in crushing me about voting for a $2,500 raise for my mother, who worked for the town of Hempstead for probably 3 decades. So if there's ever a time that you should have stepped up and said, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out, this was it.
I had nothing to do with the selection of that vendor, and you already disclosed at a prior meeting that a brother of a law partner of mine worked for this company. That has no bearing on the company's merits. It has no bearing on this.
I don't point the finger at the company. I point the finger at you. Okay, I'm going to finish. I'm going to point the finger at you because you were the one who voted for it.
Yes, Esposito, so you can hold your comments. I don't know where every brother, sister, cousin, aunt, uncle of people that I formerly worked with work, and they may work for some vendors who do business with the town. There's a very rigorous process that we put in place for the selection of vendors, and I'm never involved in any of those.
Well, just to point out, this is not someone that you just worked for. This is the brother of the individual who chaired your transition team. Stop trying to make it that it's not important. You know exactly who it is, you know who's involved in this company, and don't sit here and tell all the residents, the ones that are listening at home and the ones that are here, that you have no idea who's part of this company.
No, you pointed it out at a prior board meeting. I didn't even realize.
And I will continue to point it out every time you vote for it, just like you did when you went after my family over and over again.
The selection of Arthur J. Gallagher and the fact that the brother of someone I used to work with has no bearing on whether or not they get a contract with the town of Hempstead. Ms. Meredith, do you want to continue your remarks?
It's amazing how immediate family doesn't matter now. It mattered a year ago, that's for sure.
No one in my family works for the town of Hempstead except my niece, who was hired before I was supervisor, who works as a volunteer staff member at Camp Anchor, hired by the prior administration, not me. That's the only person in my family who works for the town of Hempstead, unlike you, Councilman.
Correct, but my family members also worked here way before I was on the town board as well, so if you want to point fingers. But going back to this resolution, this individual's brother did chair your transition team. He did chair your transition team. He has been a supporter of yours, and you did work for his brother. So let's be very clear. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I never voted to give my niece a raise, nor would I ever be involved to give my niece a raise, voting for giving my niece a raise. So Ms. Meredith, do you want to go ahead?
This seems to be just kind of typical town of Hempstead, which is very sad.
I agree.
My comments have to do with, well, particularly again, reading a Newsday with regard to the IDA, the payment situation, and the town not paying the county. Can someone speak to that?
This has to do with the dispute between Nassau County and the town of Hempstead, where Nassau County was retaining funds that Nassau County said the town of Hempstead owed them and deducting it from our sales tax payments. The IDA, town of Hempstead IDA, has now decided they don't want to be part of this. By the way, the practice has stopped because we've agreed with the county that on both ends the practice will stop. They'll no longer withhold our sales tax money. If we owe them money, they're going to come to us. But it went on for a number of years, and it put our budget in very bad shape because they would just come up with this. And one year they came up with $8 million that they didn't send us, and we hadn't budgeted for it. So we decided to hold back from them what we owed them. And so that's how the whole thing started. The whole thing has now been resolved. The town of Hempstead IDA is now going to send the pilot funds belonging to the county directly to the county.
And what's the situation with the $125,000? I mean, all these types of components, aren't those also considered in this budget that was recently approved? What's the story with this $125,000?
There was a fee paid by the IDA, the controller's office, that the IDA, since they're not going to be using the controller's office any longer, will not be paid. The IDA, by the way, did not consult the town board when they did this. They did that unilaterally.
Okay. Well, the newspaper said that there was no comment from the town, so I was just curious as to what.
No, it's not. It basically is an IDA issue. It's not a town board issue.
But it's funds that can impact taxpayers. Is that not correct?
If you're asking me, does that mean we get $125,000 less? Yes. But the matter has just come up. They did it unilaterally. There are discussions going on about it.
So this issue is still ongoing, in other words? As it pertains to the previous meetings with regard to these new positions, or a new position as it pertains to veterans, and now encompassing a whole another level when it talks about mental health, I'm still concerned as to where the additional funding is going to come from, because decisions seem to be made and then it's like after the fact things get added on, but then there doesn't seem to be the resources to make these things happen. So I'm curious as to where, because I have not seen anything of substance as it pertains to a true growth model. Having this forum this evening, I want to be hopeful, but I am still very concerned that this really does not scratch the true surface, considering the number of veterans that we have here, the needs that we have here, and the lack of an infrastructure as it pertains to a business development model that speaks to not only service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses, but minority and women-owned businesses. So it's this year going to be we're going to try to put something together for veterans, and then maybe next year we'll incorporate minorities and women. I mean, how does that impact someone, for example, who is also a veteran, a service-disabled veteran, and a minority and a woman, for example? Can anyone speak to that?
So regarding a question about the substance abuse person that we're going to be rolling out, that was all in the budget. I mean, we have money allocated for that in the 2018 budget.
Right. My focus has to do with trying to address the issues before it becomes a situation where a returning veteran has to resort to substance abuse or other challenges because they are frustrated that they cannot get the job that they need to pay for the home that they have served our country to protect. That's the issue that we have facing here. When 1 in 4 of our residents, our community, our population in the homeless community are veterans. When veterans leave the nation, it's suicides. When they leave the nation in divorce and domestic misconduct. That's where my concern is, because this is where I live, this is where I pay taxes. And we are so far behind the 8 ball for the amount of taxes that we pay, and the concerns that I've continued to bring to this forum, to this format, that I feel that I'm just getting these, as I'm told, these small steps that I'm supposed to celebrate. Well, I will celebrate the small steps, especially after I read about, a van that will travel this region to support the pets of a veteran, but we can't put resources to provide the mobile access on a regular basis for our veterans themselves. So I need someone to speak to this as pertains to just addressing the mental health. That's all well and good, but why aren't we doing something proactive before they get to that point where we have seniors that are living in fear of foreclosure?
So it's the mental health and the substance abuse, just to be clear about that. Separately, I think collectively we do need to do a better job regarding outreach to veterans. I don't disagree with you at all. We have a huge problem with that we do not provide enough resources to them, and I think going forward we have to figure out ways to help them better. I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, this is one small step. I acknowledge that. We have limited funds, but I think going forward we do have to do more.
It's just sad that we keep saying that we have the limited funds when it comes to our veterans, but we seem to be finding all types of resources and finding funding and supports and grants and underwriting for all of these other projects. Notwithstanding for those, it is important, notwithstanding that, but again, we keep saying that when it comes to our veterans, the small steps are supposed to be something that we're satisfied with.
Oh, I don't think we should be satisfied at all.
But we're not doing anything different. We're not doing anything different. I have not seen any, again, in this current budget, I have not seen anything of significance that speaks to where we should be in 2018 in this region where we're America's first suburb, and that where many of our veterans who served in World War II and the Korean War still live here and struggle to live here. I have not seen anything different.
As far as mental health, a man pulling up in front of a veteran's house saying veterans' mental health is going to embarrass him in front of his neighbors, and he's not going to want to go, have them come to his neighborhood. 1. 2, taking blood and EKGs. You said suicides and mental health. You did say that. So a man coming around, and the federal government has the doctors that treat veterans for not only mental health problems, not only PTSD, not only but the physical problems. And if they have to do an EKG, I don't know how good it would be in a van, or taking blood, I'm sure that they can go to a VFW hall or American Legion hall, which outpatient facilities have been set up in Lynbrook and in Massapequa, and we have the Veterans Administration comes over to Nassau County University Medical Center, and I use that as an outpatient facility. And I get EKGs done and blood drawn there. So I get use of Nassau County Medical Center. So I'm more convenient than going all the way to Northport. So it is something that has been addressed by the federal government. Is it as great as we wanted? No, it's not. You know, we wanted a medical hospital here, not just an outpatient facility. We wanted that, and we tried to get that. But you have to have a sister hospital here, as NYU is right next to the VA on 1st Avenue and 23rd Street. There's VA hospitals has to have a school, a medical school attached to it in that county. We didn't provide that in Nassau County, therefore we weren't able to get the facility. And then we were, on the top of the line, the county executive, were able to get the outpatient facility over at Nassau County Medical Center. So we were able to bring it into Nassau. But now, getting a van to go around to the community, that's something that the Veterans Administration has to do, because they have to be professionals. They have to have the expertise in treating veterans for their gunshot wounds or the mental disabilities, or to mend their wounds from amputations. That has to be done at the facility like the medical center, which we do have here. But we can't go traveling. They don't have that ability yet. And maybe they will in the future, but that's a federal government. Town of Hempstead can't do that. We have to hire doctors then. And then we have to hire, and they would have to be okayed by the VA. It's a big transition. They won't even do it with the county, which is a lot bigger than us. And they wouldn't do it with us in the county. So the town of Hempstead, which is the largest, probably larger than most counties in the country too. If that can happen, you darn well I'll make it happen. But right now, it doesn't look like it's going to go that way. So getting a van to go around like you do for pets, to clip their nails or to check their ears out or whatever they do for the pets, that they're not going to be able to do that for human beings. And which have complex problems. Nobody's more complex than a human being. And the men and women that serve our country over in war zones, they come home with complex problems, really, and then they come home to bigger problems with their children not saying that you're not the same mom, they're not. You know, you're not the same woman I married. You're not the same man I married. It's a female. It's just, really, there's so much complexion there that they can't do it in a van, a traveling van. That should be done in a facility if they go to the veterans facilities, like the VFWs and American Legion, which they try to do. Then that can be handled. So I appreciate working with you, and I'll continue to work with you. And if you have these ideas you want to further pursue it, let's do it. I want your help. I'm asking you publicly to help us see if we can do this.
No problem with that. I use it as an example, but there are facilities, there are RVs that have been used in rural environments that can travel. I'm not saying
what they do, those vehicles with veterans, the disabled American veterans, the vans, and what they do is they make application for service-connected disability compensation or non-service-connected disability pension and widows' pensions for those widows of veterans. So those are for application for service-connected conditions. That's what they do on those vans. They don't do any treatment on those vans.
I'm speaking with regard to an RV that's been medically equipped to provide at least initial triage services. I've not only seen it, know about it, I've been on them. So I know that it can happen. And my focus has to do with business development and job creation to avoid substance abuse and things of that nature. But to take your point, I will work with you to try to make something happen because these small steps are getting very tiresome.
I'm very proud of the Department of Occupational Resources, which Gregory Becker runs. He went to college with me, and he's a very, very bright guy, and he's very compassionate about the veterans, getting them to learn how to use computers, get them to help them put their resumes together, to do job searching with them. They sit right there at 50 Clinton Street, is it? 50 Clinton? 50 Clinton Street. You drop by there.
I've been by there. Again, we're not on the same page, but let's work together because you're still at the occupational employment level, and I'm still talking about multi-million-dollar veteran-owned businesses who cannot get contract work in this region. They seem to be able to operate across the country. There's a veteran-owned company that just got a multi-million-dollar variance out in the town of Riverhead for a property out there. So we need to be able to do that here at that level so that we can create sustainable jobs for our veterans, so that we can get our veterans off of the foreclosure rolls right over in Mineola. That's what I'm talking about.
We're on the same page.
Thank you.
Diane Madden.
Diane Madden, Hempstead. I wanted to speak about the banned or suspended volunteer. Very briefly, I don't think that she's heard from the town attorney's office or investigators. The reason I bring that up is because, again, an attorney had contacted me. Now, keep in mind, she has not retained an attorney, so please don't use that against her and say she can't be spoken to. I am asking you, or begging you, to come up with a solution to let this woman back in. I know at one time another volunteer was unjustly banned due to some kind of accusation from a politically connected staff member. The way they resolved it, rather than to permanently ban her, was to have her come in at opposite times until they could figure it out. So I really ask you to think about that. As I speak, wonderful volunteers are fleeing out of that animal shelter under Laura Gillen's leadership, under an unqualified liaison that does more harm than good. That 150 people showed up at Babylon's interview for volunteers, many of them Hempstead volunteers. You should be holding an immediate meeting to find out what their grievances are and to beg them to return, but at the same time, good volunteers are also being suspended. So please look at that. You know things are bad when reputable town officials approach you to say, I understand what you're saying, Diane, because I too have been prohibited, denied an adoption of a kitten at the animal shelter. Now, I am not going to repeat this name. You couldn't ask for a better home or more responsible, and this person left and was denied the ability to adopt a kitten as you're overflowing with animals at the animal shelter. That is shameful, but no one should be more ashamed than you, Gillen. You campaigned on this. People are leaving. Rescues are cutting their ties. And all your liaisons doing is figuring out ways to cover it all up and spend more tax dollars. You should be spending less tax dollars and bringing in the experts. I don't want to hear about your memo anymore. You sent a memo out months ago. All you're doing is flagging that around and using it against the board, who, by the way, are the people working with us to try to get some things accomplished. There's, I believe, money left in the line item for advertising. I don't know how much is left. I haven't boiled it lately. But I ask that, and I don't even know who to ask, but I ask that some of that money is used to advertise the assistant director position, please. On Indeed.com is a great place. Believe it or not, animal rescue organizations and animal-related jobs and whatnot are listed on Indeed. And if there's money left in that fund, I ask you to please start advertising that position.
Chris, where are we on the advertising of that position? Did we boost that? Did we pay to boost that?
We're also placing on multiple websites.
Okay.
Getting information on additional locations of the
Are we shy of funds? I mean, do we have enough money to post it where we need to?
I don't think that'll be a problem.
And just to jump back to the issue of the cats and the adoption, maybe Chris, if we can ask you to handle this. There have been some, what appears to be credible stories of good people being denied the ability to adopt cats. Can we figure out what our requirements for adoption are? Obviously, we don't want to endanger the animals, but if it's a good family and there are too many situations where it seems unreasonable that these cats have not been adopted out for rules, at least in my mind, would seem silly. So can we refresh that? Look into that? Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and hopefully that's done soon. I wanted to add that another wonderful adopter, approved already by the animal shelter, drove for 3 hours to come and adopt a dog. When she got there, she found out that they forgot to tell her she had to bring her own dog. I believe some officials were trying to rearrange possibly what they did years ago, which was send a qualified. I have to tell you, some of your animal control officers are more qualified than the $109,000 behaviors. But in any case, back then they would say, and some of them are still employed there on these transports to get that done. Instead, what happened, and I don't know how this happened, they asked the woman to drive again 3 hours, come back to the shelter. The woman got there. The meet and greet didn't work out. She pretty much begged them to find another dog out of 150 dogs. Well, you know how this story ends. She left without a dog and drove back home for the second time, 3 hours. Again, this is all under Michael Pistori and those that are on his little island. That should never happen in an animal shelter. This is a government shelter, tax-funded shelter. You have probably 150 dogs. I would think that one of them could have matched this outstanding adopter's home and her family. Instead, she left, never to return again. I've asked her, she says, I'm not coming back for the third time. So these dogs just sit there, and opportunities are denied left and right. The vaccination, and I'm glad you brought this up, Councilwoman, it's antiquated, the vaccination requirements for the animal shelter. I can't tell you how many people are turned away, even when they have vet notes saying that their animal cannot be vaccinated because they're elderly or sickly, and they're still denied animals. So Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter isn't just overflowing with animals like other shelters may claim. They're overflowing with animals because adoptions are being obstructed and rescue organizations are not being reached out to. I realize I'm out of time. There's a very troubling letter from Mr. Pistori here to the Animal Crimes Unit. He goes after the public. He goes after good Samaritans that are trying to intercede with animals that they feel are being neglected or in jeopardy of being hit. This is what Mr. Pistori is doing. This is the them versus us mentality. It's wrong. And I ask you to please do something immediately, immediately. When you have good volunteers signing up in other shelters, you have a crisis. So please take action. Thank you. No, I don't want to hand anything to you, Mitch.
Make a copy of that. Mr. Richard Estrada?
Well, good afternoon, Lucille, Marek. Most of what I had to say, of course, was to the supervisor, Gillen, so right now I guess this is all senseless and I'm up here doing nothing. But you've been listening to me for years and we're still all in the same place. You know, that's the part that I'm really fuzzy about here, because we didn't get into this mess just this year. We got into this mess over years and years and years, and now somebody has to get us out of it. And all of this is just so reminiscent. I have to tell you, it does bother me. This, what's going on with the behaviorist position? She's still there, and it's coming up to the end of the year. What's going to happen? Are we going to hear no one applied? The same thing we heard 2 years ago and 2 years before that? How come we have no assistant director who's applying for the position? The director's still sitting there. Everything's exactly the same. It is just the same. It is just too reminiscent of the same pattern that's gone over and over again. So I'm all for whoever changes it. And it certainly appears and seems that you guys have more power than her and her staff, because they're a bunch of fumbling fools that couldn't find their way out of a paper bag. We see that. We get that. They have lost all respect, especially from us. And it's not only from us, across the board. So, you know we're here, you know we're watching, you know we're waiting, but we're not going to wait till the next election. I mean, we can't, these animals can't stand much more of this. It's sad. It's really sad what's being allowed to happen. They're stuck in this crossfire, they're stuck in this battleground, and they're suffering. And the foils are still the same. The amount of cats that are still dying in cages tells you that there's still neglect. There's neglect, there's abuse, there's incompetence. Somebody's got to do something. Can't keep waiting. Get people in this place who can make a difference. Find out why they're not applying for these positions that you so-called are looking for or searching for. It's not out there enough, that's all I can tell you. You have the money, take out a page in the Times and in Newsday, everywhere. The animals need help. Now, do we think she's coming back? Because what I have to say is the same thing over and over and over, but there's other people here who want to talk to her. Is she coming back? She's gone for the day. I wouldn't feel well either if I were her. I'd be deathly ill. So, okay. So then, hopefully we'll be talking to you. And we've been talking to you for a long time. I hope you do something soon.
I guess you can tell I'm here. Hi, my name is Diane Schaefer. I'm from Garden City Park. Last time I was here was unfortunately for the, speaking here, was for the Kill the Kitty fiasco. That was an embarrassment to not only the town, the county, the island, and probably all around the world through social media. I thought things were getting better after meeting Diane Madden and Lucille DeFina and getting on board with trying to help with that whole thing. And it did start to get better, but it just is not. And what I'm really most upset about is she's gone. And she was the reason why I campaigned, was because I believed in her. I stood on the steps with you, Celia, who I love, adore. When you're doing your job, went to high school with your in-laws. Anyway, campaigned for you too. I can't vote here, but my relatives can and my friends can. I put signs everywhere on people's front lawns. I campaigned for her, believing in everything that she told us right on the steps of this building of how she was going to help the animals, and she's not. It's worse. It's so much worse. I can't even begin to tell you how upset I am. My dog came from there, and thank God, my pit bull is out of there. She's the most wonderful dog in the world, but at any rate, right now you have an issue with, which they have expressed to you, is that there are rescues there that are trying to pull dogs, and it's not happening. I personally got involved recently on social media because you have 3 bulldogs at your shelter. 2 bulldog rescues reached out. One didn't like the quality of the dogs, so they bowed out. The other one never got a call back, never got an answer to their email. They're still waiting. You have an overflowing shelter. You've got rescues like breed rescues. They're not the only breed-specific rescue that's reached out. They know the breed. They know the people that want to help these dogs, that want to adopt them. They're willing to take them in. It makes room for other animals that are there, and it's not happening. Something really needs to be done about that. Probably my last thing that I would like to say is that I agree with everything that Valerie said before. Thank God for those 3 ladies back there. If you are not going to listen to them, maybe you'll listen to the town of Smithtown. Because the town of Smithtown has publicly thanked Diane Madden for all of her expertise, knowledge, and help. It actually says here, since I have time left, I would also like to thank Diane Madden for her unwavering guidance and help regarding this wonderful project at the Smithtown Animal Shelter, as well as other projects going on right here. Diane Madden has been invaluable to us. There's a whole big bunch. I could forward it to all of you, but come on, please. The animals need all of us. This is not just 1 or 2 or 3 people. This is a community. Thank you for listening to me.
Could you please give those specific complaints to Chris as far as the little dogs, so we can look into those? Oh, sorry, over there. Thanks.
Rory.
Are you here, Rory?
Yes, I am. Couldn't hear you. I'm sorry, no.
Turn the microphone on.
It's hard to hear.
Did I hear this correctly before, Mr. Dunn? Did you consider putting on the side of the van, Veterans Mental Health Ban? Is that what you said?
I don't think any veteran wants a veteran pulling up in front of their house saying, Veterans Mental Health Ban, showing the neighborhood that they're having problems. Veterans are very proud people. They don't want to share their problems. That's why there's a lot, it's very, very complex. They'll go to the VFW, they'll go to the American Legion, they'll go to...
That's not my question.
No, I did not say.
That's not my question. My question is, you suggested that if we somehow had this formula that we could do something about it, that a van would say Veterans Mental Health Ban. I wouldn't want that either. How about just Veteran Services?
I said no.
That's right, he said no to that.
No, he made the suggestion, not me.
No, he did not.
He didn't, and whatever he might have said, that there was, in the full context of Councilman Dunn's comments, were absolutely that he would think that was not appropriate.
Yes.
Now,
that's what he said. It was not appropriate.
Off the top of my head, I certainly would just think Veteran Services would be appropriate.
He said it right. It was mentioned by somebody else, but not by him. He didn't say that.
Mentioned by me. Somebody else wasn't mentioned by me. That's not what I said.
It was mentioned by nobody.
No, it was mentioned by Mr. Dunn. It was not, that was his terminology. I wrote it down.
Cue the tape and
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, can somebody, because I didn't have enough time to ask these questions, there was...
Well, your time, you better hurry up, because your time is running.
I know. Okay, at number 40, can somebody just explain to me what the cleanup of the constituent database means?
That's for Anchor. That was Anchor program. Yeah, I should have asked that question. What is it?
What is it?
I guess they're getting ready to, I don't know.
My clock is ticking.
That's one thing I forgot.
What number?
That's an Anchor program. I feel it's because residents coming in and people over there. I don't know what to do.
Number 40.
Finish with that.
I don't understand what that means if somebody...
That's what I think it is. Because they have the private. Is it Anchor?
No, that's the name of the company.
Oh, it really?
I believe from what I read, it is the database that's used for any townwide mailings. It's just cleaning up that database.
Don't we have an IT department here?
Do we have an IT department here? Yes, we do.
How many people are employed there?
I have no idea.
Like 50. Like, why aren't they doing that? I don't understand that.
You asked what the item was for, that's what I'm explaining.
Okay.
I'm sure that everyone there works pretty hard. I'm sure there must have been a reason as to why they needed to go outside to do this.
Okay, and on number 20, this I didn't understand either. They're renewing the lease on the Motoflex classroom. Specifically,
You're talking about number 20? You mean the Department of Conservation Waterways?
resolution number 20.
Okay.
Can somebody just explain it?
That's for the minister. That's right. We finished with the cap. Why are you doing this?
Just curious, because I didn't have enough time to ask these questions earlier, what it means, that's all.
Yes, would you ask that to her, please? Oh, Mr. Dodger, thank you. And you're supposed to be talking about public comments and miscellaneous.
This is a mobile classroom that we have. Students come to the marine nature study. We're in the process of renovating the building, so it's not that operational. So we're using this classroom to have children come.
And when you say you're in the process, that would mean now it's already been 2 years it's been mobile? Now we're going to
We may even have to do it again next year, depending on the construction and what's going on with the permits.
And the permits are to who?
The DEC, but I think we're all in line to get this done. So we may use the classroom just to have students come through next year, and then we will go to the classroom.
Okay, great, thanks. And then number 38, there was a resolution amending the network connectivity. I had brought this up before. The network connectivity, when we come in here to use our computers, stinks. And I just want to bring it up again, and you guys are going to look into it, and I'm sure nobody has, but I just thought I'd mention it. And lastly, because this is something that I have done quite a few times recently, I had to do some research for some clients and looking into buildings in New York City. They needed, building permits, expediting things. It's so interesting. You can literally go online in New York City and find almost any single document that you need. That same information, when I come to the town of Hempstead to try to get, I'm here for sometimes 4 hours. 4 hours I got to schlep here from living out east. Why aren't we on computer? It is the largest township in America. It is just so sad. And I think it would be great, and nobody addresses this. You go into the building department, it's literally files higher than this podium. Just files piled up, and nobody knows what's going on. They can never find anything. And I think it's something that you guys should address. It's embarrassing. I mean, I'm used to it. I come here a lot, and nobody has done anything about it.
Mr. Rothkamp, is there a way that we could modernize documents or
can't do that.
Or is it an accurate description of?
I wasn't modernizing, I was talking about going online with everything.
Well, that would be modernizing, right?
I guess to a certain.
Good evening, council members. Yes, we have been working on that. Some of the things that we've done is we've taken 7 million images and digitized them and put them on the computer system, as well as we have a file track system that tracks 60,000 active folders that we have currently throughout the department. And we are always working with the IT department to try to make things more user-friendly via computer.
Is it a question of funding? Is there anything holding that back, or?
Oh, that's part of it, yes.
Okay. So maybe we can look at that.
The 7 million images are not accessible online. You have to come here and you have to physically sit in front of a computer. New York City, you don't do that. You could visit.
Yeah, but if I may, I mean, if you turned around and put the images of people's floor plans online, it's sort of a safety issue.
They do it in New York.
All right, well, just because, listen, everything, I worked in New York City, everything Bill de Blasio does is not correct, that's for sure.
We don't wait for Bill de Blasio.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, he runs the city. So just because they do it there doesn't mean it's right for the town of Hempstead. It's much easier to put building plans for large-scale buildings and not someone's single-family home that lives in East Meadow or Island Park.
Why is it easier?
It doesn't cause as big of a safety concern.
What safety concern?
You want people to have the ability to know everything that's going on, how your floor plans are. I mean,
What's the difference if I get it online or if I physically come here and look at it?
Because then we know who's accessing it.
Well, you pay a fee then, but you do it from home.
Well, I personally am not comfortable with that.
But wait a second, you're not comfortable with that, but you're comfortable with me going upstairs and looking at everything.
But we know who you are.
Exactly. It gives the building department the ability to know who's looking at the documents.
But you would have to give your credit card in order to get in there to get that information. So you're going to know who's looking at the document.
Mr. Robkin, could you explain the way that the process works currently and what safeguards are in place currently to protect homeowners from, whether it's someone that you have an order of protection against, an ex-spouse, or those types of scenarios?
Yes. As I was saying, years ago, if you would come here and you wanted copies of your plans, they were on microfiche, you would have to write down what you want, pay for them, you would leave, we would send them to reproduction, and in a couple of days they would come back and we would call you to let you know that they were ready. By us digitizing these 7+ million records, now they are on the computer system. And the way we have it set up is you have to go to the front counter and ask for the permit number. It's not by address, so someone can't sit there and just start looking at people's houses randomly. You go to the front counter, you ask for the permit number, that's why we set it up that way. Then you could go into the real estate division, type in that computer number, that permit number, and it would bring up the floor plans of that house.
So obviously safety was a concern, I'm not just dreaming it up.
That is correct. Again, you don't really want to have layouts of people's homes, which rooms their children are sleeping in, and things of that nature that could be a concern for people.
You know as well as I do, you don't put on a floor plan, the boy's bedroom or it says master bedroom on it. I mean, come on, who are you kidding?
That's a floor plan. If you do a floor plan, everything for that house is going to be on that particular.
Well, let me tell you all, I've looked all of your houses, okay? So maybe you feel unsafe about that. But there is no reason that...
Why would you possibly want the floor plans from our house?
I don't want the floor plans. I want everything that's associated with your house to see if everything is legal. And if I was going to buy your house, I would want the floor plan. Instead of saying I'm looking at your house, his house, her house, and his house.
Okay, I think this is enough of that.
I think you've made my point pretty clear. Thank you.
I don't want to have to go through looking at everything when I can conveniently do it from my computer.
But why are you doing that? Is it because you're in real estate?
I do expediting.
And the difference between the town of Hempstead and the city of New York is the city of New York receives truckloads of money from the federal government and the state government. We get pittance from the federal government and the state government. So to compare us to what they do with the tons of money, our tax dollars that end up in New York City, it's the shameful. We don't get near the money they get to do the things that they do. and they should be better at what they do with all the money they get from us.
Okay, this is for public comment. We have some other residents who would like to
My
speak.
time is still up there.
You got only 1 minute.
Okay, so did it be the 25 cents for the first copy?
Okay, I'm gonna give you 50 seconds. Okay, thank you. Look.
Commissioner Rothkamp for keeping the residents safe.
Okay, Miss Mary Ellen Craig.
Mary Ellen Cray, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. Senior Councilwoman, I don't think you realize either your microphone wasn't on or you're not coming close enough to it, because at first we could not hear the names that you were calling, in the back of the room. So it's something.
It was on at one time, but I turned it off. Can you hear me now? I know you can hear me now.
On item number 93, I should have asked this before. I'm not clear what it was about Engel Berman. Did this set a hearing date for Engel Berman, 93?
No, it didn't say it clearly. What was Mr. Roth?
I believe it was just accepting the site plan, and was it sequence 2 for A. Holly Patterson?
Yes. That's accepting the site.
It was accepting the site plan.
And so there is no hearing date or anything like that?
We had the hearing, I think, a year or so ago.
Yes, I'm just checking on whether there is something upcoming or not.
This is merely a site plan.
Thank you. Excuse me. Now, did I misunderstand, or I thought I heard that Michael Pistori asked for a transfer at the last meeting? I had heard something along that line. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand?
I think that Michael Pistori, the subject of Michael Pistori's transfer has been talked about at town board meetings for the past number of years. I don't know that Mr. Pistori himself has ever asked for a transfer. You've heard the board talk about it, you've heard some of the public speakers talk about it, but I don't think that he has ever asked for one.
I guess I misunderstood. I thought I heard that. My next question is, for how many years did we have a confidential assistant to the receiver of taxes, please?
I don't know the answer to that question, but it's been in the budget for a number of years. But I don't know the answer exactly how many years. It's not a new position.
And was that filled over those years?
I believe so. It is, however, written out of the 2019 budget.
I understand that, but you would be able to let me know how many years it was filled previously?
Trying to find out, yes.
Thank you, and you have my phone number, right? You leave a message. Thank you. Okay, there were a number of questions about the calendar of events when I brought it up, and so I am asking that these be given to the board members, please. I hope I have enough, I'm not sure. I had asked at the budget time the calendar of events, which is available in libraries and so on and so forth, whether the budget, what the budget was for it, and I have not been able to find it in the budget. You apparently misconstrued it. Somebody said that it was now with the Department of Parks and Recreation. I believe it's put out by Tourism.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. So what's the actual question?
So the question is, where is this in the budget?
This calendar of events, I believe, is printed through tourism. So
that's what I thought. So I've been...
What's printed by the Parks Department is the seasonal park events, whether it's classes.
Yes, I'm aware of it. I'm aware of that. But when I asked the question at the budget hearing, it was misconstrued that what I was discussing, which was this, was put out by the Parks Department, which I knew was not correct. I do not see it anywhere in the tourism budget. So where is it? How much is it? That's what I had asked at the budget hearing, and I still do not have.
I'm not sure if anyone from the controller's office is here, but I'm sure we can get that information for you.
I would like to know.
So you want to know the calendar of events, which I believe is printed monthly.
Correct.
From the tourism department.
Correct.
How much it costs. That was it? How much it costs?
How much it costs. Personnel, printing, distribution, mailing.
Okay.
Please. And what I'd like to know is further the booklet put out by the Department of Parks and Recreation, which does indicate the courses and activities available. How will people know when to pick up that booklet, since we will not be getting it to our homes? It's only put out at certain times. How will we know when to go to pick it up at the parks or various locations?
I think that we haven't discussed this yet, but I think something that we can come up with is perhaps a calendar that we can get out there and let you know that on this day the book will be available and where it will be available. Parks, senior centers, museums, town hall, town buildings, the receiver and taxes office. I think we could try to, as a board, come up with a schedule that as of, July 31st, the fall booklet is available. As of February, the end of February, the spring would be available.
Since it varies considerably according to holidays and various religious events, this is not just a regular occurrence. It's not that easy to make it a regular occurrence.
I would also urge you to contact your council person and let them know that you're interested in it. There's no reason why we can't mail it to you. It's just sending it en masse to everyone in town of Hempstead. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're just trying to cut back.
However, the calendar events is sent out. That's why I want to compare, since the senior citizens are the ones who are, in many cases, unable to go online or whatever to find out about these activities. My next comment is that it's taking 3 years to renovate some kind of building at the Department of Conservation and Waterways, and that's why we have a freestanding rental.
Yeah, it's not that it's really taken 3 years, it's that there's been permitting that's gone on. We've also looked for alternative funding to build a classroom. And to be honest with you, I've been down there. The park is in my district, and the classroom is really nice. It services hundreds and hundreds of school-age children from throughout the town of Hempstead on a weekly basis. It's doing the job that we needed to do right now, and I think that the Department of Conservation and Waterways is doing their best to, like I said, find alternative funding and make sure we can, get the best bang for our buck. We're not rushing into it because the classroom, the mobile classroom, is serving us well.
I see. It just seems an awfully long time. The people from West Hempstead seem to indicate a McMansion can go up in a matter of a month and a half. And I want to compliment Conservation and Waterways on their demonstration projects down there in Lido Beach. It's really very impressive, and I enjoyed the tour that the Sierra Club took.
Okay, thank you so very much. Good night, everybody. Have a good day. That's it. I have no more slips.
I printed 2 slips. I have to speak. Look how prepared I am. Come on.
Well, I'll give you 5 minutes, that's it.
Well, thank you.
Because I do not have, I have 1 slip for you. That's
I
it.
had 2 slips. slips. One was for, I know what happened, they probably know.
I don't know, they've been talking to the guy.
All right, so good afternoon. I'm going to go quickly. First of all, Mr. Roth, oh, good, you're here. What did you just say about Mr. Pistori not wanting to be transferred?
The question was asked, has Mr. Pistori asked for a transfer? That she had thought she heard that in this room. I don't know that we've ever heard Mr. Pistori ask for a transfer.
In May, at the town board meeting, Supervisor Gillen made a huge display over an email memo that she says that she sent to the entire board, stating that not only did Michael Pistori want to be transferred, but that the union had also approved of that, and so did his personal attorney. I just want to be clear, he wants to be transferred, correct?
I remember that meeting, but the question was, did Mr. Pistori ever ask for a transfer? And I'm telling you, to the best of my knowledge, he has never asked for a transfer.
So then, did Supervisor Gillen lie?
No. You said she had something from his attorney. That could be true.
No, she said that
Let's be clear about something. Yep. Pistori has a tested civil service position. Those positions are very hard, and he has a very high title. That position is very difficult to come by, and it's very, very important to him. Any transfer of him would have him give up that title. I'm not so sure he really wants a transfer.
I'd like to,
and it'd be very easy for him to walk in here or go to HR and say, I want a transfer.
Okay.
I don't think that has ever happened.
I am going to go back to the footage and I will pull it verbatim because I believe that Supervisor Gillen made a large display. In fact, Mitch also went and showed Diane the memo.
I have no doubt that the attorney may have said he wants to have a transfer. I have no doubt that the attorney said that. But I think when they went back and looked at the fact that he'd have to give up his tested position and then be fired at any time, he may have changed his mind.
Yeah,
and I have no knowledge, I've never had a conversation with him.
Okay, well, in all fairness though, from what I also understand, based on the last meeting of 2017, is that anyone can still be fired based on incompetence. So it's not as if everyone is bulletproof, right?
Yeah, but when you don't have the civil service title as the president of the union would tell you, it's a little bit different. When you have a tested position, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different.
I know it's different, but that's why, being told by the supervisor that he wanted to be transferred and that the union was on board with it and so was his attorney. All right, I'm going to move on. I'll pull the footage. It's okay. And also, I'd like to meet you after the meeting, Mr. Rod. Okay, but it's conversation 2 weeks ago.
Let's not make this an issue where the supervisor misspoke or anything like that, because that's not what happened. His attorney, I am sure.
Well, no, and in all due respect, what happened was that the supervisor tried to claim that the town board was not being responsive to her and in her attempt to transfer Mr. Pastore. That's exactly what happened. That's how she was trying to paint the picture, is that we didn't respond to a memo, which, agreed, there was no response, but the issue is not that you can't just transfer somebody. It's not as easy as that. So I think that was discussed at the meeting. We talked about it with the supervisor at the meeting, and it was, we kind of came to an agreement that it's not as easy. I'm sure Mr. Pinnick was there as well. It's not as easy as just transferring someone. There are other moving parts to having someone who has a civil service title move into another area.
I'm familiar with Mitch Pinnick, counsel to the supervisor. I'm familiar with the memo, I'm familiar with the prior board meeting discussions. The supervisor's position is, she sent a memo to the board, she would be willing and she would like to meet with the board soon to discuss the memo.
Why would the board meet with her when she calls them corrupt, when she insults them all the time, when she's suing them? I'm just curious, like that, is that the behavior of someone that you would want to sit down at a table with?
The town board is here, the town board is here to do the people's business. I'm not going to get into any...
I think they're doing it.
The supervisors...
Let's just clarify, I think we are doing the people's business, let's just get that off the table. And as far as, we had countless internal meetings on this issue. and it was in good faith. I think Mr. Ryan, you were part of it. You know, we have other people in this room who participated in that conversation. So I think all of us in good faith are dealing with the animal shelter, and as you see, we put forward a position, we're advertising for assistant director. So, but we are doing our job. I just want everyone to rest assured, despite some claims to the contrary, we are doing our job, and we were elected to do the people's business, we continue to do the people's business.
I would just say that I think it's appropriate to respond to the supervisor's memo, or to at least include.
We've had lots of public conversations about it. We have.
Supervisor or her staff in the meeting for the discussion regarding Mr. Ben's order.
Excuse me, I don't think you should discuss this anymore. She's not here, and you can't speak for her. You don't remember anything. You're not her. So I think we should do this when she's here.
I agree. So, and by the way, I kind of like this feeling. It's 357 days left till the next election, so I'm kind of getting used to the her not being here thing. Moving on, I wanted to give you some report of findings, okay, and point something out to you, which I think is incredibly important. My concern is that I believe there is a severe lack of equality going on at the shelter. I'd like to lock in on the volunteer program for today. Number one, 2 months ago, there was a woman who, English is not her first language. She came here, pled her case as to why she felt that she had a personal vendetta, and the behaviorist, the unqualified, uncertified behaviorist, reported her as calling her a murderer, okay, which, by the way, is a word that she actually has a very difficult time saying. I'm of Hispanic descent. The word murderer is a difficult word for someone with a Spanish accent to say. That said, in tears, she came here talking about how emotionally attached that she is to the animals, how she cleans houses at night, goes to the shelter to walk these dogs, and she was suspended. It's been over 2 months, okay? Now, let's fast forward to also a couple of months ago. You have a volunteer by the last name Zizzo. Diane Madden, who's responsible for bringing this volunteer program to the animal shelter, was called a twat by this volunteer. That is a vulgar slang term. It's disgusting. I personally believe that when you volunteer somewhere, you're an extension of whatever entity or business or foundation you're representing. If I went to volunteer for the Red Cross and I called someone a twat, do you think they would put up with that? How is this tolerated? And this, by the way, is not a he said, she said case, okay? This volunteer wrote an incident report where she admits calling Diane Madden a twat in writing. She's proud of it. I'd like to know how come she's not suspended. That does not seem fair and equitable to me. Additionally, I have personally been attacked by John Nussbaum, another volunteer, and the reason he attacked me is because he claims that I'm lying about the severity of the issues at the shelter, and that I'm jeopardizing the potential adoptions for specifically the FELV cats. Now, I went to the shelter on my own accord, my own time, and I foiled every single cat that they would give me access to. Here's what I found. Number one, there's a case number 8464, which has no records on it. The cat is there. Her name is Minnie. It came back 0 records. I don't know how that's possible. Number two, in the cattery, there was a total of 18 cats. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the process of the cattery, but they give you a binder, and every single cat is supposed to be accounted for. In that binder was 16 cats. They were missing 2 cats. In the other FELV room, there was, I believe, 7 cats, and only 6 of them were documented with their profiles up on the screen. If anyone wants to talk to me about this, I mean, I think this is important. There's a discrepancy in the amount of animals that we have. There is abuse going on from the volunteers to the taxpayers and the constituents, and I'm still interested in knowing what happened to the investigation that I launched for being accused as anti-Semitic. I'd like to know. Do I get to know what happened with that? That's also not hearsay, okay? My husband-to-be had a conversation with head vet Dr. Siegel. He admitted to calling me anti-Semitic. My Jewish fiance.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Your time is up. Is it possible we can have you sit with somebody, Mr. Virginia?
Please. Sure. Yes, because I have more, by the way.
Could you sit with him, please?
Yes.
Maybe you go out, because it's lunch past lunchtime. Probably had to go.
I'm hungry too, trust me. I went to a bris this morning and didn't even eat. Okay. Mr. Rod, I'd love to pick up our conversation from the last board meeting too. Please. Thank you.
Good night.